it's good to be on, man.
Yeah, after I put that video out today on Article 11. It's
Yeah,
our distraction. So I
yeah.
figured
I mean,
it's time to come on and get more response.
yeah. I mean, I came across that document in my own research, and it's written 10 years before the actual Constitution was written, which was its second phase. From a position, as I understand it, um, when there's a couple of things that I find when you look at the details, the
Yeah,
Union, the Union, the United States at the time, 9 states, and Canada, and succeeding. Okay. Now I've researched for, oh gosh, a good part of 6 years, really, trying to find a document to debunk this. Right? I'm not a law person. I don't have a bar exam that I've passed, but I'd like to believe that if you can't find a document that they have to contradict it, that it's still a standing document.
right. That's
Right?
exactly what it is. I mean, I included in the video I posted the
Yes.
actual article and the
Yeah.
part where it says that it's part of the Constitution that Canada is part of the Union should it choose to be.
Yeah. And a colleague that we know, Paul, he's alluded to some of the history here in the southern parts of Alberta. They had a lot of people that surround the Tabor area, the Cardston area, the Lethbridge area, even Drumheller. Um, a lot of the old folk, at least anyway, remember the open invitation, right?
Yes.
And so, when you look at the way that the world has been going right now, we know very well that there is an alternative government that is more for corporate control than
Yes.
it is really for the people. And I'd like to believe that a lot of people have experienced a lot of heartache. That people are looking for an avenue for improvement. Let's just use that word, improvement. Right?
Yes.
I mean, do a lot of people want to leave Canada as we know it? Well, no. I mean, myself, I'm I'm an immigrant, as for about 30 years. Love this country so much, like where I'm from, New Zealand. But when you're living in a country that once was, in my eyes, a beautiful nation when it came to Canadians enjoying their life, I tend to think a lot of people are looking for an avenue of rescue to a degree. You
Yes.
know,
That's a lot
my
of what it is.
my fiance has rescued 50 dogs. Right,
Jeez.
she's rescued 50 dogs, but we're a province that has an abundance of resources that has been um, siphoned, stolen, manipulated, no matter what word you want to give it. And it's at a time now where I think that the last 20 years, with previous movements to try to separate, such as Quebec, I think it's time for Alberta. Do I want to leave the way it is? Well, of course. There has to be a better future than what we are experiencing. So
Yes.
that document was very, very eye opening to me when I came across it, because it's like, well, hang on a minute. We don't really need a referendum, right? If a lot of people came to understand and read this document, a lot of history has been taken away.
Yes.
It is my belief that at the time when this was offered, those we use the word elitists, we use the word cabal, we use the word deep state, right? But though the powers that be that were up here in the north didn't want to share the resources, is that's my perception. And so they drew an imaginary line with that transcontinental railroad across Canada, and it became an imaginary border. So a lot of people are going for a referendum. As you know, the Alberta Prosperity Party There's also the Alberta Republican Party out there that's looking for independence, but to what ends? Are we going to join the union for economic strength and military protection, or are we just going to try and go on our own? Now, I haven't really looked at your podcast, but from my view, I think it aligns the same that independence will be achieved. I think it will be achieved, but it will be a shortfall. You know,
Well,
trial and error. Trial and error will happen, and it will come to a point where the people will just say, you know what, enough of this. Let's just join the states. Now we have to go through another emotional process. That's the thing.
yeah, and what the problem is that people aren't seeing, and I don't know if it's something that Prosperity Project has come up with on their own, or if they just figured this would be the path forward. They say we'll be independent, but we'll maintain a economic partnership with Canada. It's like, well, no, it's not going to work that way, because if you separate from Canada, Ottawa's going to look at you and say, why should we continue to help you when you've left us? You leaving us says you want nothing to do with us. So there's not going to be a partnership with Canada at that point. So Alberta's going to have to look somewhere else, somewhere that is going to take the resources, because otherwise the money that Alberta creates is going to run out very quickly.
Well,
It's
yeah,
going to have to
Will. I
go.
mean, yeah, as your viewers come on, and I see you got some people coming on now,
Yeah.
that I did the math. I did the math. When it comes to the economic prosperity, let's put America aside. Right? If you took the Equalization Act, and I correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's around 800 billion over a course of 10 years. I did
Yes.
the math. I did the math to that based upon a population of 5 million here in Alberta.
Yeah.
It would yield $1,333 extra for every Albertan every month.
Yeah.
And we've already shown as a government that we can function without that Equalization Act being passed through to the federal government. So if we can still function without it, and let's just say that we are now part of the United States, we still submit a carbon tax, not to the people, but it can be reciprocated back to the people in the form of a stipend,
Yes.
which is that $1,333. A lot of people here are suffering paycheck to paycheck. I'm fortunate to be in self-employed, and I still feel the pinch, believe
Yeah.
it or not. Right? When you take that in consideration, and let's just say, what else can we do to make the rest of Albertans prosper? To me, remove the income tax.
Yeah.
Why? Why should any person on this platform or anyone in Alberta have to honestly wake up after the third pressing of the alarm, right? After the third pressing of the alarm, and get up, and in order to be simply productive in life, you're taxed. So if you could give a stipend on the best case scenario, $1,333, plus remove the income tax, that would yield possibly nearly, depending on your occupation and career, $2,500 to $3,000 extra.
Yeah, which opens up a world of affordability for people that possibly didn't have that before.
Well, yes, and after 30 years being in this country, I know we like our leisures. I know we like our beer on the balcony,
Yeah, one of
right?
the pleasures of life.
Yeah, we like our leisures. We like our sporting events. We like to be able to do things with the family here in Canada, and that's fine. You've got 5 days a week of work, which is given to a corporation. You have 2 days to yourself, and it's a repetitive cycle. So why don't we minimize the burden? People will naturally spend a lot more, right? When you have more money, right? You can move it towards an investment. You can move it towards tourism. by traveling a lot more, it opens a lot more opportunities. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it
Right?
does. And I mean, we see how many people now are even using streaming services because it's more affordable for them to afford that than basic cable.
Yeah, I mean, I do intentionally make conversations with people just to really find out where their mind space, where their headspace is right now. And the typical question I ask people is kind of like a reverse way to get an answer is, if we were already an independent country, right, and we had the opportunity to join Canada in its current state, would you want to join?
And most people with the high taxes would say no.
That's right. So if you're willing to say no, then why are you defending it? No, a
And that's
lot
what
of
I,
people, because there's history. There's a lot of deep-rooted history here in Canada, and I think that's part of the reason why people don't want to let go of that,
yeah.
right? But you have no choice really in the end because whether you want to let go or not, it's being taken away.
Yeah. And I mean, the one that people don't understand, yet they talk about it all the time, the athletes, like the hockey players, because every year there's the question of the guys who come up as free agents. Oh well, where are they going to sign? Well, why do you think the southern states and the tax free states or no state tax um, cities and markets are always of so much popularity to them? Because they're keeping more of the money that they make. They're
Yeah,
not losing as much of it. It's the same concept.
you know, I try to watch everything happening from a worldwide perspective rather than a singular perspective. And what they came out, it was a blue bin tax, a green bin tax, and a black bin tax
Yeah,
for all the stuff that we throw away. And it's like they're trying to find every angle to take money from us. I mean, to the point now that you have to actually buy a grocery bag if you don't have anyone in hand
yeah,
at a dollar to $3. They put control on the consumer to minimize plastics, but they allow corporations to hold their product in plastics on the shelves.
yep.
Like, where's the common sense in that? Right? And so, from over a course of years I've been here, it's like, well, what's next? What's next? Well, what's the next tax they want to invent?
It's
Right?
it's gonna depend on where they can exploit people's fear next.
Yeah, I think that's part of it as well. I mean, the convoy was an eye opener for everyone in regards to initially before it became a bit of uh, a tyrannical position. Canada was kind of like united for about 12 hours, right?
Yeah,
Canada was
that was it.
Kind of Canada was united for like 12 hours, and they were like, "Yes, someone is saying something. People are stepping up." And then all of a sudden, the tables were turned the moment Trudeau turned his back to partly his constituents. Remember that?
Yeah,
Not everyone there conservative. People maybe have crossed the fence, over time, but I'm pretty sure there were some people that initially, and the word is initially, voted for him, and he turned his back. And then the moment that happened, you remember that lady that was in her, she was a handicapped person, and she was in her little trolley thing. What do you call those things? Those little carts that they drive.
yeah. The powered.
And then horse. Usually, when someone's handicapped, we extend a helping hand. Right? But they were using horses to trod on people. That's not the Canada that I came to love. That's not the Canada I gave up my New Zealand culture for to be here full time, right? And for myself personally, I'm angry. I try to remain humble, right? But I'm angry. Um, as I had spoken with you before, mainly because I'm an oath taker of being an immigrant, and the government broke their oath to me, as far as I'm concerned. They broke it to all Canadians, but when you're born here, it's different. When you are adopted into this country, you have to swear an oath.
Yes.
And so that oath becomes binding with the government, and it's a two-way oath based upon the rights that they give you, right? And I'm still angry, and this has been going on for 10 years since Trudeau's administration, right? 10 years, the fastest decline I've seen so far, which is in part, and when you look at, sorry, my fiance is singing on the karaoke machine, and I'm just hearing her screaming. But oh, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not extermination, genocide.
Loman, you're cutting out here. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
You've been cutting.
Can you hear me now?
Connection's a little spotty, it seems.
How
Yeah,
about
you're
now?
good. Oh, maybe not.
If people are watching the news, South African farmers, over 1.5 million people, have sought asylum in the United States as a result that is happening in Africa. People are being murdered, people are being raped, and people are, their farms have been taken away, and these are predominantly farming families. Genocide, if I remember rightly, there's about 10 points. One of them is about dividing the people, us versus you, which is currently what we're going through right now with transgenderism. Okay. I've decided to kill myself for the way that I was born because I want to be the way that I want to feel. That's me now against you, because the moment that they all of a sudden 6 billion people in the world are wrong, right? What I'm getting at here is the same division is happening in Alberta, but it's, I the Canadian but the Canadian, right?
Loman, cutting out again.
And it happens over and over again. How about now?
You're
Not
Yeah,
now.
you're not too bad, but I don't know what's going on with your connection on your side.
Well, I'm in the countryside, you can see in the back, I live in the mountains basically. So let me just take it off. Guy
Oh,
in the network. So how is it now?
better. Yeah, I think you're better now.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was bouncing in and out of network and Wi-Fi, right? So I mean, is it while I'm on? Is there any questions you want to ask me? Because my heart is full of anger, given some thought of how we can make it right going forward. But I'd love to answer the questions, and also answer any questions that your viewers, right, that might want to ask, because everyone's hurting. Everyone has their own story,
And I mean, I think I'll
and
open it up to the viewers and for the people who have been saying hello here. We
yeah,
really acknowledge them, but thank you guys for being here. But between the two of us, we're both involved in the political scene here in Alberta. And if you have questions, please feel free to drop them. Um, I know for me, I do want to clear one thing up because it's come my way a few times. A lot of people think because I'm a separatist that I'm some type of traitor to Canada. And that's not the case, okay? My thing is, because I grew up in Ontario and then I moved to Alberta. And being that I want the what's best for Alberta and I want a prosperous future doesn't mean I hate Canada, because Canada's been my home my entire life. It's not that I hate Canada, it's that right now I live in Alberta and I want my current home to be better. I want to see endless improvement.
Yeah.
Tim is saying, "Who cares what anyone thinks?" Well, if that's your mentality, you don't have to be here. You can stroll on by. We
Yeah,
are
I
we
see
are
that.
free speaking. We are free speaking Albertans that are allowed to have an opinion and allowed to share our observations.
People are very sensitive right now. People are very emotionally distraught to the point where comments like that do come out. Well, what does it really matter, right? But at the end of the day, if you have children, I have grandchildren. If you're anything over 40 years old, you have a vast, deeper history to grab onto and know very well it was a lot freer then than it is now. The younger generation, this is all they know, right? They don't have anything comparable,
Right.
right? Right? So, I mean, I see the comment, Kim's comment, and he or she, I don't know, Kim can be a guy's name too, right? I mean, they have a right to say what they want to say, right? But at the end of the day, what value does it bring you by saying that on a platform where free speech should be free speech? This is not about, in my eyes, saying that anyone is wrong. I'm 52. I have spent more years in this country than I was born in New Zealand. I left when I was 17. I traveled the world for 6 years backpacking. Then I landed here in Canada, and my eyes were open. Oh, this is so much like New Zealand. Right on. Right. I feel home away from home.
Right.
It was adopted into my heart. Love this country. It took me 20 plus years to decide to become a citizen because I saw the division, especially when it came to Kepakwa, right? And the attitude that was given to the Westerners, which is a form of separatist racism, as far as I'm concerned. They live under civic law. The rest of Canada lives under common law, right? And so I saw the division, but one would say, well, why don't you go back to New Zealand? Well, it's my right to travel free as I see fit, and if I fall in love with a country, probably deeper than I've experienced in New Zealand, then you know what? I became a permanent resident who went through the process twice, and I just came to love Canada. But when you have children and grandchildren, and you look from as I call it, the innocuous theory, if you're looking through life through a single lens, then it's a single perception.
Yes.
When you look at through a binocular, it opens your vision a lot more. When you look at flies, they have many eyes that give them a 360-degree view as for what's around them. And we need to adapt that mentality that we need to take a lot bigger look at what's going on here in Canada when it comes to our next generation. Is this going to put you into position where your grandchildren will say to you, before communism came into Canada, did you fight for my rights? I got two grandchildren, and I do not want to be able to lie. I do not want to give a white lie to my grandkids.
Exactly.
I'll be honest and truth. And so this is my fight. If people don't want to separate, that's your right and your choice.
And you have that vote when the referendum comes.
Yeah. But we also know that consequences happen after the action, right? Unless you're a conservative. right?
Yeah,
Consequences are unknown. And so I would rather I feel in my heart that this is something that needs to be really, really looked at. Are we really wanting to separate? I feel that for prosperity, because this, I mean, you have to be a idiot. And I'm going to say that.
yep.
You have to be an idiot to be able to say it's been prosperous in the last 10 years,
It hasn't been. Everything has been much more of
right?
a struggle for everybody.
So if we can experience that in only 10 years of decline, so much that people are um, convoying to Ottawa, right? That the
Into the
world,
borders.
right? The world did convoys, not just Canada. We weren't the only ones, right? You have to be either ignorant, don't care, and if you don't care, it says a lot.
Yeah,
But if you really, really see a drastic change, you can choose to become that frog in a pot, right? And cooked over time, which is where we're at right now. We're so cooked mentally and psychologically that the fight is not there to rescue ourselves. And that is the perfect example. We have become so conducively psychologically fucked over as far as I'm concerned, right? That there
yeah,
is really there's no fight. When you look at the South, it's divided. But a lot of Democrats are now merging to Republican because your eyes see everything, your brain interprets what you see, and your heart tells you what you feel, right? And so you have to come to your own accord, really. Mine is, yeah, we need to separate in order to protect what's left. I'm native New Zealander and I understand the fight that is coming back from the tribal nations, right?
mm,
One would presume it's those on higher up on the hierarchy, right, that are saying things because they're the ones that get the money from the government. To me, it's different because I am native New Zealander. I'm Maori, I'm Polynesian, and I'm just trying to move out of this light,
yeah. You're good.
right? And so, I see Kim as speaking his or her mind freely, and that's fine, right?
And
And
see,
but
I think the problem here too, while we're on the topic of speaking freely too, what some people don't understand, a lot of the change and the divide happened in 2020 through 2022, even with the freedom convoys and whatnot. Because, and this is the difference between East and West in Canada. I was saying it to a buddy of mine earlier today who's a long hauler out of Saskatchewan. I don't know what's going on here, but
I think that's someone advocating for separation.
it could be. Um, but during the scamdemic of 2020, and I was still in Ontario at first, I couldn't go into a grocery store because I was not vaccinated. I wouldn't wear a mask, and I would get harassed by everybody because whether it was store staff, whether it was other people in the grocery store, and I don't think I can put blame on the people specifically. I'm putting blame on the media and the government who brainwashed them with fear and exploited their fears for something that shouldn't have been taken so seriously. And the difference is when I came to Alberta, there were more people who were just
Yeah.
living their daily life and doing what they wanted, and you wouldn't be harassed so much. The ones who would constantly harass me still was the federal government. They were the only ones causing any issues. I had my bank account frozen for a week. There were threats to my freedom for not going along with the agenda, and those continue just for having an opposing view of the agenda that they have in place.
And that's so true. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things happened to me, but I'm reading Kim's comment here that in 2023, I'm sorry, I mean no disrespect if you're still on, Kim, but he or she said could only eat 4 days a week.
That's the reality for many.
Yeah, that sounds like a third world country we are in,
Yeah.
right? And we're going backwards. We're going backwards in culture. We are divided more in our parties, a lot more, which then extends to we're divided as people. I had my bank accounts frozen um, as well, and with these mandates, for me, it was about. I know you and I have spoken about it before behind the scenes, but if anyone's listening, you have to give some clarity as for what happened with me. I'm a dual citizen who swore an oath, who didn't take the vaccine. I'm also a New Zealand citizen, which had the most draconian lockdowns. I was not allowed to leave this nation to go to New Zealand, and I was not allowed to enter New Zealand because of my health choice. If anyone's astutely smart, I became a political prisoner
Yep.
with no rights.
Anyone who opposed any of those mandates became a political prisoner.
I remember when you remember when the your vaccine status had to be proven because uh, for a different reason I got the vaccine in the end. I was kind of softly strong arm regarding my career. Right, basically, if you don't get it, you may not work.
Yeah.
Right, right, and I went to a restaurant one time and they said, "Can you prove your digital status that you took the vaccine?" I said, "Not a problem. Can you prove the digital status that you're vaccinated serving me?"
Yeah. Turn the card back on them.
Yeah, we became so individually. People are not stupid, but as a culture, we became so stupid.
Yeah.
We became
Well,
so stupid. I said to my fiance when this all kind of like lockdowns kind of like happened, I got laid off as a result of the lockdowns. And I said to her, I said, if this is really, really true, we should be having biohazard waste bins all around the city for the disposal of these masks. But no, what did we see? They were disposed in the streets,
yeah, still are. I still
and they
see
still
people
are,
wearing them.
right? Then I would see people wearing a mask under their nose, right? Thinking as long as their mouth, right, is covered, that it's all good. And those blue masks were only good for actual existing sanitary environments such as hospitals. And I know because I was on hospital for 6 years. So if anyone wants to argue about that mask, right, argue with yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And so what's next? I didn't look at these, I would say, forced vaccinations because if you didn't get it, you lost your job. I mean, the evidence that a lot of people lost their jobs,
Yeah.
right? Especially in the Alberta health industry. I mean, Daniel Smith is complaining about the health industry, but it's just like, oh, hello, you fired a lot of people.
There, it to Danielle's credit, it wasn't her who fired people. It was the
Well, I know
previous
that,
fake
but
conservative administration.
yeah, but it's I mean, what's next? To me, this is what this process was. It was a survey to find out how many citizens would conform without question? And if you've got about 85% of the populace that conformed without question and got the vaccine from a government level, they know, oh, we got 85% of people that would just conform to our laws. We only have to worry about 15%, which is predominantly Christian. So what did Trudeau do after the fact is he tightened the laws a little bit more, right? Because they already know if they tighten the laws, you're going to conform.
Yeah, because you have no other option.
Well, it's not only no other option. You've proven that you will be like a sheep.
Yeah.
There, there, right? And
But for
so,
me, the cherry on top of the spectacle that they put out there wasn't even the vaccines. It wasn't the masks. It wasn't any of the mandates. What pushed me over the edge with this entire country, and unfortunately, it did come down to the federal administration. But when you have how many Canadians that were part of that convoy to Ottawa who just wanted to have a conversation with the prime minister or with somebody from that administration and express their concerns in a civil manner. Instead, the prime minister fled to his cottage in an undisclosed location in British Columbia, but we all know it's defeat. Um, Nobody bothered to listen to our side of the aisle, and instead, they arrested people on fake charges.
hey, babe, boys, I'm on a phone call.
And
Can I
they
call you?
yeah,
Can I see you in 5? I'll come and see you in 5. I'm on a phone call, guys.
and they say that
Sorry, that's my grandkids.
oh good.
I
They
would
say
show
that
them,
we
but I
are
don't want to put them on the internet.
oh
Right?
yeah, no, I don't blame you for that. Uh,
Right?
but they say that we're the
Hi, Cody. Come on in. Come on in, but
are
I'm on the phone call.
that we're the Nazis. It's like no. We wanted to have the civil discourse and the open conversation. We wanted to let you choose what you put in your body and what you do in your daily life. We wanted to give you the option as to
Yeah.
whether you had to comply with certain medical orders, even though they're not exactly laws. But the other forcing us to do what they wanted, but somehow we're the Nazis. Mm-mm. Nope.
Sorry. I'm just getting all the political bullshit out of my system. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, those who went to the convoy, I wish I could have been there. But if you lost critical thinking to not want to stand up for your rights, I had a friend one time that said, "I got the vaccine." I said, "Why?" This is when I wasn't vaccinated, so I can have my rights. I said, "You're Canadian. You already had these rights,
Yeah. Nobody
right?"
can take those from you.
But people got the vaccine to have their rights. If you're really subjugating your rights to the government, that is the biggest dangerous thing that you could do. The history of America and the 13 colonies that left England under King George III and his tyrannical rule of high taxes, government overreach is exactly the same of what's happening here in Canada. So Alberta, Canada, Alberta specifically, is in their King George III moment. And you have to be able to decide for yourself, do I leave like the 13 colonies did for prosperity, freedom, and independence? Or do I just be like the frog in the pot? And when I'm dead, psychologically, emotionally, motivationally, I may as well call myself owned. And if you feel you're owned, I'm sorry, that's slavery.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people are going to have the question, kind of like I did with you the other night, or maybe last night, is well, if the referendum in 2026 fails, what's the plan going forward? Well, you have a couple options. And regardless of which option you take, you're not wrong. You have either the option to seek asylum in a free country south of the border, or you rise up and you run for office federally and you give your country back to the people and no longer allow the government to dictate what rights you have and don't have. Those are your options. That's it. And if anyone from the Liberal government is watching and you want to report me and have me arrested, come get me.
At
I
the end of
dare.
the day, do you want a quick process or do you want a long, drawn out process? Right?
Yeah,
You and I are just having a conversation on the balcony because I'm not there on your balcony, right?
right.
So, if if the powers that be are threatened by expression, I don't know, maybe get an emotional pillow.
Yeah.
Like seriously, we have become such an emotional race, not just Canadians. It's everywhere. So emotional that people are mutilating their temples, their bodily temples,
Mhm.
in order to feel emotionally right. And if an individual, I know someone that personally that went through the is going through this process, full surgery and so forth. It caught me by surprise because for the first 2 weeks, I really thought he was a guy. Now, one would say, well, because you thought I was a guy, I am a guy, right? But if you get to a point of mutilating your temple and saying to yourself, I have to kill the person that I was born to be in order to become who I want to be, in order to be happier. And if that's the case, that's your own choice. But what I would see in between that is if you had to kill the person that you were born to be, you already know that you were a man or a woman, and you're not a god, right? To go about saying I'm going to recreate myself, right? It is a dangerous moral curve that we don't know what the emotional scars of consequences will happen down the end. I know some people that have gone through it and regret it because the media and the government has done very well to dumb us down to the point that we no longer feel important or we don't even know who we are anymore. I want to say to people, regardless of your faith, you're of a divine maker and you need to realize who you are, right? I
And
know
part
who I
of
am.
and part of us knowing who we are isn't just who we are ourselves, but our history.
Oh yeah,
And
okay.
I forget who had the quote. It was a long time ago, but it was a Canadian quote, um, and it was, "We won't have a future if we don't remember the past," which is a good reference to say history repeats itself because it does, and we've seen it over and over again.
Well, that's kind of like saying to the millennials, this is the only future that you know because you didn't have a past as well,
Yeah,
right?
they're
Right.
taking away that knowledge of the past because they're rewriting history books to tell you what they want you to think as opposed to what actually happened.
Well, I would look at uh, the Holocaust. What did Hitler do? He burnt all educational books, right? Eradicating history uh, allows them the ability to rewrite history. When the educational system here in Canada, I can only speak for Alberta, but Canada, went from a digital educational system, I said that's dangerous. That's dangerous because now you're reading everything that is on the computer, which is basically designed by people that you have no relationship with. You know, we had specific authors that would give you truths based upon their stories. You've got educational books that are now talking about DEI stuff. When did sex become the first subject to talk about in school? When I was a kid, it was in school, but it was the last subject, and it was a well, what do you call what size were those projectors? And they had these round projectors, and they put it on a screen, and it was a condom and a banana. That's all we got.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
all we got to learn was how to put a condom on a banana. Right
and same.
now, now they're talking to young children, four, I would say 4 to 14, in a sexual connotation way when they don't even have the emotional stability to know the difference between right and wrong, right? Or the emotional weight of consequence. And so, how can individuals that are of this age say, I want to be a woman or I want to be a guy? You can't even survive out in life. This is the reason why the laws are in Alberta 18 to be considered an adult. Or should I say it in a different way? It is the government's way of saying, we feel you are now responsible and independent enough to take accountability and accept consequences on your own. And
And
if you,
that legal age to me, and this is just my opinion, it's not something that I would even bring into law, but I almost agree with what the US is doing with their drinking age, because across the US their drinking age is 21.
yeah, yeah,
And I know they have different ages to serve in the army and to vote and whatnot. You can vote at 18 still, but to me, them saying you are not allowed to legally drink alcohol until you're 21 says there are certain things that you need to understand first before you allow a foreign substance to alter your judgment in any way.
well, you're right, but let's put that out of the way or out of the question. Just because you're 18 does not make you an adult. It makes you
Exactly.
legally recognizable as an adult by the law, right? But the maturity level of someone that is 45, who has a deeper life experience, and experience makes you grow, right? It makes you grow. You learn from your mistakes, right? You correct them, you improve yourself, and that is a time thing, right? I
Yep.
know some people that are 18 and more mature than 30-year-olds,
Yeah.
right? But I also know
Very
some
few.
30-year-olds are still childlike thinking,
Yeah.
right? So what one would say, well, what does one classify as an adult? The law has to put a certain age in order for you to live a little bit more free, right? It's called the illusion of freedom. As long as you feel that you can roam around, right, drive in your car because I got my license at 16, I'm free now, right?
Not quite.
Yeah, not quite. No, you got a lot to learn. So,
And there are people even now that have a lot to learn, and you bring up that freedom of, because you're able to go wherever you want. This is mainly for my people in Edmonton. It's happening in other places too. The 15-minute cities I want to bring up, and that's another reason Alberta has to get out of this Marxist hellhole, because otherwise it's going to roam rampant here. But people in Edmonton are still saying, "Oh, well, I can go wherever I want. I can still go wherever I want, even though they're building these 15-minute cities." It's like, "Oh, well, I I can leave and go somewhere else in the city. Yeah, right now you can." But they're putting it in your head with the way they're building infrastructure that you don't have to, that everything you need is within a short distance. And soon enough, you are going to get comfortable enough with that mentality that they're going to start putting up police checkpoints at the edges of those 15-minute cities. And because you've become comfortable with the idea that you don't have to go outside of that zone, you're not going to care.
well, yeah,
But it's
I mean,
about control.
right now it seems convenient, right? Oh, I
That's how
only need
they
to
sell it.
go 15 minutes away from home to get to somewhere where all surfaces are there. Sorry, I got so much of this political bullshit in my system. I'm trying to sneeze it out. All right. Yeah, people are about convenience. That's the Canadian well. We want convenience. But if you look back in time during the mandate lockdowns, if you looked at China, they installed a digital passport, right, which is based upon your score that you had to acquire in order to have services. Now, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's in China. There was an individual that said it would take him about 2 hours to get to work, right? But it's like a point system. If you follow their rules, you get a point system to have services. If you don't follow their rules, as an example, you don't follow their rules, they'll lock down your truck. And trucks nowadays, vehicles are nowadays are so computerized, especially with Ford as an example. You've got that Ford
The Ford
Pass,
Pack.
or the Ford Pass thing,
Yeah.
right? I,
Dude.
I heard someone talk about her situation personally, who had a Ford Pass because she got a couple of DUIs, right?
Yeah.
And she got a couple of DUIs, and the government shut down her vehicle because of that,
Yeah.
right? Because of
I've
that.
said that
Yet,
too.
yet Ford Pass states in their terms and conditions that they don't share it with third parties, your
Oh,
information,
that's
right?
that a load of BS.
All right. So I know someone personally that's gone through this process of the fascist control, government overreach, which is exactly the same of what happened uh, pre-founding of the Americas. And I mean, my body's just reacting to all this political bullshit in my system. It's my nose is running. I'm sneezing. But
Well,
anyway,
but to talk about the fascism and the communism, southern border of the United States, all the people coming in illegally, while they should be going through the legal process of coming into the US, I'll put a question out to the people here. Why are they coming to the US? What are they? They're
well,
leaving Cuba, they're leaving Mexico, they're leaving every other country that's run by fascists, communists, or cartels. Because that
well,
control of their entire life scares them. It's an inconvenience to them. It is something that they are sick of putting up with. So they're leaving for somewhere that is more free.
yeah, I was my concern at the time was not really the states, although you're right. My concern was, well, if they're coming through the southern border, they're eventually going to trickle here into Canada,
And they have.
and they have. And so the media has not covered a lot of truths, and we all know that. I thank you to Donald Trump for exposing the lies of the media.
The
But
fake news media is
as a Canadian, I would be seriously concerned. Well, if you're allowing them so freely to come into your southern border, we have a border connected to America down in Coots, right? They're going to come through here when Trudeau at the time speak so highly of doing business deals with the CCP and allowing Chinese troops to train uh, down by Brooks. God,
the
there's a
the border down by Brooks.
no, there's a
Or the
military base, military
oh
training base.
yes, Suffield.
Suffield, yes. The train down at Suffield, I'm looking at it on a bigger scale going 20 years down the road. So if you've got China that is pumping fentanyl into Mexico, and now they have manufactured factories on the Chinese dollar, yen, whatever. The Chinese CCP has surrounded America down in the south. And if you've got a prime minister that's making deals with China, allowing military to come in down in Suffield, the CCP plays a long game. So if they're going to position themselves and buy all the land up in Canada, they now, from a business and economic view, are taking over Canada. But let's look at it from a wartime view. Now they surround America from the south and they surround America from the north. Now we're prepared to attack. 30 years from now, we can attack and really take out the citizens that hold these arms. Canada's lost
Yes.
when it comes to taking away your weapons. Oh, well, yeah, if you want to take them away from the honest citizenship or uh, constituents, it doesn't mean you've stopped the black market.
No, the illegal weapons are still going to make their way through.
Yeah. Whew, we're talking political. My body's really reacting to all this talk. It's
And I think the weather
Perfect.
here in Edmonton is too. And I may want to wrap it up soon because it looks like we're getting some rain coming right here. And we're supposed to be getting some smoke tomorrow too. So I don't know how that's going to play out. Yeah, we'll pick this up hopefully later this week and do another one of these sessions for people. And for everyone who's been here, thank you. And Loman, thank you for being here as well.
You're getting more followers now. You got 9.
Yeah, it's been as high as 14 today. So I mean, we'll get more over time as this stays up on the platform, and hopefully CBC doesn't threaten to have me taken down.
Well, I just want to share something before you close down because your previous feed was already censored, right? Because I shared it with people and they could not log in because it was already censored. So that's an eye opener, right?
Yeah.
But I want to say people that are listening that if you want to tune in again, share some questions or thoughts or feelings or concerns that you have because we'll address them in a respectful way to allow you to warrant thought process for yourself because in the end it's about you. Everyone's important,
Yes,
right?
and I want to share just one other thing, and this is not me plugging myself at all or plugging my channel, but in a few days you're going to see a membership button pop up on my channel, and the only way to actually avoid the censorship is to put these live streams and to put future videos behind a paywall. It's super
Yeah.
cheap to do, but
Yeah,
that's the only way to avoid the
yeah.
censorship.
Yep, yep. And I'll subscribe to it, man. You know, but my Mike LaRusso is a truther. Mike LaRusso is a patriot.
I'm
And
not just in this for me, I'm in this for Alberta.
I know, but we all need a leader. We all need a leader that is willing to take the helm across the line or take the torch, right? Are we going to have an independent country based upon joining the union? We need a governor, right? Right, right, governor, right. So,
I mean, we'll see where that goes.
right. I love
Anyway,
Canada. I love you all, and tune in next time. We'll be here,
we'll
right?
see you
And
guys
maybe
soon.
it'll get bigger and bigger. Okay, man. Take care. Bye.
See you later.